lane in the quiet village, where time seemed to drag on slowly, stood my grandmother's house. Since childhood, I remembered this house as a cozy and safe haven, but that one trip when I was a teenager forever changed my perception of it. The journey began with a typical conversation in the kitchen of my own home. My grandmother called my parents and invited me to spend the weekend with her. "You've grown up so much, my boy. It's time to visit your old grandmother again," she said with a smile. But something in that smile made me shiver. Ignoring my gut feeling, I packed up and set off. Along the way to my grandmother's house, the forests grew denser, and the landscapes became increasingly eerie. At the edge of dusk, I finally reached the ancient estate, surrounded by dark trees like guardians beckoning into the gloom. My grandmother greeted me with a smile, but her eyes seemed cold and impenetrable, as if she were hiding something dreadful behind her pleasant facade. She led me to my room and left, leaving me alone with the ominous shadows cast by old furniture. I spent the first night sleepless, listening to noises emanating from the depths of the house. The creak of old stairs, the clang of doors, heavy footsteps, whispers that seemed to come from beneath the floorboards. It all filled me with unease, but I steadfastly brushed off my fears. "It's just an old grandmother's house. There's nothing sinister here," I reassured myself. However, the next morning, my grandmother began to behave strangely. She would often disappear for hours, leaving me alone with this sinister house. And when she reappeared, there was something in her eyes that made me flinch. There was a cruelty, inexplicable. My fears only grew with each passing hour. I began to notice strange tracks on the floor, imprints of large claws, as if someone or something prowled the house at night. I saw shadows moving in the corners of my eyes and heard whispers that sounded like the voice of something ominous. One day, deciding to investigate, I ventured into the old library on the top floor of the house. There, among dusty shelves and forgotten books, I found my grandfather's diary. It contained entries about strange events occurring in this house and warnings not to trust my grandmother. My heart raced as I realized that all this time I had been in danger, but it was already too late. I heard a sinister rustling behind me, and turned. Before me stood my grandmother, but her eyes were filled with an inhuman hunger. She approached me, and I saw that her hands had turned into sharp claws, and her face was distorted with inhuman features. She opened her mouth, emitting a loud, raspy laughter, and I realized that before me was not my kind grandmother, but some horrible creature hiding beneath her guise. I rushed to the exit, trying to escape from this monster that I had believed to be my grandmother all this time. But the house, which had seemed to me a sanctuary before, became a trap from which there was no escape. Its labyrinth of corridors and rooms confused me, and I realized that I had fallen into the clutches of this dreadful creature. My cries pierced the silence of this place, but there was no response. Only the footsteps of my pursuer, drawing nearer and nearer. I closed my eyes and prayed for salvation, but when I opened them again, I found myself in a dark basement room, surrounded by dark shadows and ominous whispers. Since that day, I never returned to that house. But dreams of that dreadful grandmother and her dark house haunt me to this day, reminding me that even the most innocuous places can hide terrible secrets.